Hey everybody, welcome back. So for this, we're going to talk about offset bends. Now in the previous videos, we talked about 90-degree bends and back-to-back 90s, but for this one, we're going to talk about offsets. This is specifically going to help us for our breaker box kind of going out, and then kind of maybe for some of the lights, other things. So for offset bends, there's a couple things, a little bit different math. We're dealing more with triangles now, kind of like a hypotenuse. So this is a good example here of what we're going to be talking about. Now, our most common one we're going to do is maybe 22.5 or 30-degree offset bend, right here, these two. So there's a multiplier that goes along with that and a shrinkage. So when we're doing this, there's always 2 points, 2 different boxes. So if we kind of have a box here and a box here, we need to find our distance in between them. So let's just say this is kind of like X. Then we're going to multiply this value depending on what angle we want. So again, if you have a box right here, box up here, we're going to make kind of like a little zigzag piece, our offset bend. Now again, from center to center, that's our value. So let's say that's B. Let's say it equals just 12 even. Again, we're going to maybe for this example do a 30-degree bend. So our multiplier is by 2. We would have to take that value from center to center 12, multiply that by 2 equals 24 inches, aka 2 feet. So again, that's one of the values we're going to need for our kind of middle piece, our hypotenuse to say. Another thing though, when we actually grab our piece, a couple different marks than our 90, we're going to have to start with 3 inches on the side to start and on the end. So again, from this box, you can see we have a little, I guess, tail end, little short end we have there. So that's 3 inches plus our middle hypotenuse plus another 3 inches then to end. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about what that looks like on the module. Then we'll go mark this up. All right. Hey, so in that last video, we kind of just went over the basics of what our offset bend was going to look like. Now, we changed the numbers just a little bit to make it easier. This is a common offset bend we're going to have to do in our modules, most likely off of our breaker box or between our partition wall. So we're going to have a 4-inch difference from our breaker box to box or box to box, anything like that. So that's going to be a kind of our hypotenuse length. Again, our multiplier is going to be 2 because we are going to be doing a 30-degree bend. So before we mark this out, we'll just kind of go over our shrinkage here. Now, we're not going to have to run into this too much because we got some longer pieces of conduit here in the shop. But if you were dealing with more exact length, stuff like that, let's just talk about it real quick. So if you're doing a 30-degree bend, again, this changes depending on what offset you're doing. So I referenced the last page. But for a 30-degree bend, we lose a 1/4 of an inch for every inch kind of for our offset value. Now, our offset value is 4 inches. So 4 inches, we have a 30-degree bend. Our shrinkage is going to be 1 inch. Where we got that from was 1/4 times 4 times 4 inches. Then it goes down to 1 inch right here. So if we were doing a full length piece, something like that, we'd have to have our 3 inches for our box plus our hypotenuse value, so that'd be 4, multiply that by 2, add another 3 inches for our other top box here, and then we'd have to add back an inch because of our shrinkage. Now again, if we're using a longer piece, which we most likely will for our modules, won't have to account for that. But again, if you are, you got to make sure you remember you add a little extra on that. So we'll go over and measure this out. All right. Hey, so we're going to go ahead and mark out that offset we just talked about. So again, this is my end of my piece. I'm going to go ahead and mark 3 inches here for that first little tail end for that box. So I got 3 inches. Now, we had a 4-inch offset, but again, multiply that by 2. So that's going to be 8. 8 plus 3, that's going to be 11. And then we're going to have to add another 3 inches then for that top box. Again, for those, that 3 inch. So then right there. Now again, we talked about that shrinkage. So if my piece was much smaller, or if I wanted to cut it to exact length, I would go ahead and add 1 more inch here for my 4 inches of kind of height there for my shrinkage. So let's just say that's my shrinkage right there with a little star. But again, we got a long piece of pipe, won't really have to deal with that. But this is ready to go. We got 3 inches, our offset value again multiplied by 2, 4 times 2, the other 3 inches, and then I just did this to show you where that shrinkage would be if we cut this exactly. So this is ready to bend. Hey, so all I did here in transition was I extended my lines a little bit all the way around, like we kind of showed in the last part. So again, 3 inches, 8-inch offset, 3 inches. I got my star there for that shrinkage value. So again, same way I'm gonna start, I'm gonna line up this first one with our arrows directly here in the middle. So I'll line this guy up right about there. So again, I know arrows are on both sides. We have one here and one in the opposite. I like this front one. So we're gonna go down to 30 degrees. So I want this part of the conduit to then touch that 30 degrees on my bender. And again, this first one's gonna be pretty easy. And then when we go on the back side, it's gonna be, we make sure we line it up correctly. So again, let's go ahead and do this. Now, the way we did the 90s on the floor, we used our foot here and we bent it, but we're gonna do the opposite way. I'm actually gonna push down. One thing I would definitely recommend is have your foot here on the bottom of your bender, kind of like a stabilizer. And then you can use your body weight and then push this down. Again, we wanna make sure that there's some tension here so it doesn't slip out. So then we're gonna get a kink or anything like that. So again, keep your foot, push down, and we'll just keep checking it periodically, okay? Again, we want this bottom to touch that 30-degree line. All right, so let's go ahead and bend this. So again, I'm gonna use my body weight here. Just gonna bend this down. So you can see I didn't put too much on it, and we're just past 10 degrees. So let's keep going a little bit. But I think right there, I'm liking that for my 30 degrees. So I'm gonna take this out. So now you can see we have our 30-degree bend. Hey, so part 2 of this, bending this 30-degree offset. So we have our first one done. Now again, this value right here, this was that 8 inches for my offset bend. I'm gonna go ahead and position this into the bender and do the back side. So one thing we gotta be aware of, we need to make sure that this is straight. The orientation is very, very important. We want this to be up, not down. If we go down, we're gonna have an offset bend and you just kind of wasted your contractor's money, or you know, we might look at you funny. So with this, we're gonna go put this into the bender. Again, line up my line here with my arrows. So I'm gonna line this up first. Now, if you kind of get a look on the camera, that this might not be directly straight from the back angle. So again, we gotta make sure that we want it to be as straight as possible. So like this would be bad. We're gonna have 2 different, this is not gonna be straight basically. It's not gonna line up with our boxes. So we need to make sure we wanna do our best of our ability. I'd probably close one eye, look right down the conduit. I would say right about here looks pretty good. But again, this looks good, but is my line now marked up with my arrow still? So let's go double check that. So I'm a hair back, so I'm just gonna release the tension, slide it forward, and line it up. So right about there. I'm happy with that. Yeah, that's cool. I'm happy with that. I don't think it's gonna dogleg one way or the other. So yeah, let's go ahead and bend this. So again, this is lined up, orientation is upwards, and I'm gonna do the same thing as before. I'm gonna push down, put my leg against it, and let's go ahead, bottom side, going to 30 degrees. So push down, nice and smooth. Again, I'm going a little faster with this one just because this is the second one. Pretty comfortable. Again, I had some little kickback. So just one more. There you go. So I'm happy with that. It's lining up with my 30 degrees. I'll take this out. And then right here, this is what we have for our 30-degree offset bend. Now again, from here to here should be 4 inches of your offset, 30 degrees, 30 degrees. So we can go ahead, kind of test this against our modules, and then cut this to our direct length. Hey, so this is what this offset bend is gonna look like on the module. So again, I just, with Sharpie, put this right here. If our box is right here, we have that 3 inches, and then this is a very, very close representation of what that 4 degrees from center to center is gonna look like. So again, if you put this right here, I have my shrinkage value there. So something like this should be what your offset looks like. Now, real quick, let me just go ahead and mark this line all the way across. So with my shrinkage, that's actually my 3-inch value. So if I put that up, lines up very nicely. I have my 4-degree offset, center to center, 3-inch, my box to be right here. Now again, I didn't cut this. So if I flip this over, I can line this up. You can see pretty nice 3 inches right there. 4 degrees, 3 inches again. I can go ahead and cut this at whatever value I want, where my box is, and you know, I'm off to the races. So again, offset bend, center to center, very important. This is what that would look like.